I said that you're wrong. They refused to even do a correction to it. We're 3 years later, and now they're admitting on the floor of the House that there are hundreds of thousands. And Nicole Girard, who's the legislative director at Citizenship and Immigration Canada, called me in August and said, we think that there are at least 750,000, maybe more.
Yeah.
Something has gone wrong when the media has ignored the subject, and it's a human rights subject. Right now, the government of Canada is violating 2 Supreme Court decisions, 3 UN Conventions on Human Rights, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the rule of law, and our Constitution, and women still do not have equality of rights. Did you know that women...
No, I didn't. No.
Here's how. In 1947, married women did not have the same rights to pass citizenship on to their children. If you were a Canadian woman, let's say married to an American man, and you had a child in Boston, your child was foreign-born to a Canadian woman. She didn't count if that baby was born in wedlock, so therefore the child did not have the right of Canadian citizenship. Reverse it.
Yeah.
The man was Canadian, and the woman was an American. The child would be Canadian. The Supreme Court ruled in 1997 this was a blatant gender violation, and it was against our charter, what Canada stands for, and in 2004 the government of Canada went back and said, we're ignoring the Supreme Court, we're going to go back and discriminate against women, and that's what they're doing now, even though now we have Bill C-37, and it's illegal. And think of this, you can ignore a unanimous Supreme Court decision on equality of rights. You can ignore 3 UN conventions on human rights, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention on the Reduction of Statelessness, and the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. Now, you're in the media. Don't you think somebody in the media should get over Pamela Anderson's breasts and go ask the Prime Minister, why are you doing this? Do you really believe women should not have equality of rights?
No, I think you're absolutely right. But I think what's happened over the years is the government has used so many, legal terms and language that has made people feel almost, it breeds contempt and apathy sometimes, that people feel overwhelmed by not being able to follow, I think, some of these issues. And I think what's happened is instead of trying to address these issues, the media's decided to just ignore them completely so that they can entertain their audiences rather than, and I think it's a part of the problem we have, generally speaking, right now in terms of communications and information. There seems to be a movement, a grassroots movement online and in social media where people seem to be getting more and more informed. But there's also this sense now where people are more polarized, and they only seem to get their sources of news from 1 or 2 places now, and so it's changed a lot.
If I could say, here's a good place for a source of news on this. It's called lostcanadian.com. One word, singular.
Yeah.
lostcanadian.com, and they'll find a lot. I mean, you noticed just the other day that Canada lost their seat on the United Nations Security Council.
That's right.
Okay, Here's a magazine. It's called Refugees. It's coming out by the United Nations Human Rights Commission, and it highlights countries that have made their own people stateless.
Yeah, this is staggering.
And this is 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And dead center in this magazine is highlighted Canada, and they compare it to Canada's track record in human rights on statelessness to Zimbabwe, Cambodia, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. Now, the United Nations knew 3 years ago something was wrong. So is it really a surprise that Canada could lose a Security Council seat? The Economist magazine 3 years ago did something, but I didn't read a lot about it.
That's an interesting point. I like that. I think you're absolutely right. I think that Canada likes to pride themselves as being progressive, and I think sometimes that this is one of those challenges where we do have to look back and look at really what's happening.
And really, you mentioned about the government writing laws, and it's very difficult to understand, but I have a concept that's very easy to understand. I would look at Mr. Harper and say, what part of equal do you not understand?
And that's the point. That's what I'm trying to get at. That's exactly right. You have been able to break down and look at the core issue, and I think that's significant, and I think that's what causes people to respond to what you're saying. I think that with the government, they just kind of they try to almost overwhelm these people, I think, by not speaking directly. So for you, when people go to this website, they will be provided with all the information?
They will, but that's only one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
I'm a product of the 1960s. We got out and marched against the Vietnam War. Today, people
Right.
are much more complacent. The greatest attribute of Canadians is that they're so wonderfully nice, and the greatest problem is they're so wonderfully nice. This will not happen. We do not get equality of rights for free. People must stand up. They must make their voice heard. Senator Noel Kinsella, I mean, in a way, shame on him. Why hasn't he come forward in the last 5 years to help me? I mean, this is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that instead of playing party politics, the senators, the MPs should be embracing this, not as a partisan issue, but as a citizenship issue, as Canadians. Come on Monday. I appreciate your talking with me, and I really thank you very much for having me today.
Well, I'll tell you, I hope to have you on again. I know we're lucky to have you come back and forth to the city. You come to regularly the Silverway Film Festival, which is something that we always look forward to seeing you. So next year, hopefully, we'll hear some news about this, and hopefully some positive news. And
it will only happen if the people listening to this program get motivated enough to actually not just speak about equality of rights, but to do something about it.
Agreed. Well, thank you so much, Don, for coming on. That was John Chapman, and he is doing a free public lecture and documentary film screening at the Noel Kinsella Auditorium at St. Thomas University at 6 p.m. The film screening, and at 7 p.m. public lecture will be on Monday, November 8th at, or I guess, well, this next week here coming up. So thanks for listening, and have a good weekend. Is that good?
21 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm funny, you can see how my radio site is coming out as I'm looking at the...
But that's okay, I don't mind 21.